Good morning, guys. It is October the 12th, and we're starting on a new week of remote learning for all high school students. This week, if you look at your agenda, let me click out of that, we're going to be reading our paired selections for this unit. It is an infographic called The World as 100 People, and a poem called A Contribution to Statistics. So there's not a whole lot to actually read, and you'll have fewer questions about reading the text. I think the infographic maybe only has one question to go with it. So it looks like a lot of work, and I know this is supposed to be a short week, but I mean, you're out of school anyway. So the point is, you need to get all of this done over these all of the activities over these two selections and be ready for your test. We'll move the test to Thursday as the date when that would have been our early release day. But since you're at home, you'll have more time to get that done, I'm sure. So we'll move the test to Thursday as the day that it has to be done. I will probably go ahead and put the test in there on Wednesday. So let's just look at what you have to complete. I may do another video. I don't want to do a video that's too long, so I don't want to just go through everything today. But you need to get I assigned you the get ready, but there's really nothing for you to do on this page. Just read it. It's focusing on the genre of an infographic, and I think that's pretty self-explanatory. So you know what tables and graphs and photographs and drawings are, diagrams and infographics. You may not be familiar with the term infographic, but it's a combination of charts, text, and images to create a visual that communicates statistical information. So if any of this doesn't ring a bell with you, then make sure that you analyze it a little bit more carefully or go over it a little bit more carefully. So read all of this. That's all you have to do, and you can mark it as done. When we go to the world as 100 people, there is a statement. The only thing you have to read is the artist statement, and that means the person that created this infographic is the artist, and he makes a statement about why and what was his inspiration and why he made this infographic. Okay. And there is only one question. It says highlight the text that describes the author's inspiration for the infographic, and that's going to be found up here. And why might this type of infographic appeal to a child? What information does it make easier to understand? That's a pretty straightforward question. Answer it carefully. There's two questions. Why might it appeal to a child? And what makes it, what information does it make easier to understand? So when I first looked at this, I was like, oh, well, I can't see that. So I put my glasses on. I still couldn't see it. So what I did was I opened the image in a new tab. And then when I clicked on it, I can see it and I can enlarge it wherever I need to enlarge it so that I can, if I needed to see it even better. So this infographic is of representing 100 people, okay, in the world. He chose 50 female and 50 males. And then he tells you what continent they came from, or he's actually giving you the statistics of the world by showing them as 100 people condensed down. Read the introduction, it'll make more sense to you. So he's dividing the religion of the world into just 100 people, but this is to show you how the religious breakdown of the world is. 12%, 12 out of 100, which would be 12%, no religion. 12 out of 100 other. 7 out of 100 Buddhists, so 7%. 14 out of 100 Hindus. 22 out of 100 Muslims, and 33 out of 100 Christian. It breaks it down by age, breaks it down by reading ability, by college, access to internet, phones, water, their poverty level, nutrition, housing, languages, pretty interesting, rural or suburban area, and then by continent. So 60 out of 100 or 60% of the world lives in Asia. 15 in Africa, 9 in South America, 5 in North America, and 11 in Europe. So all of these are percentages when he's talking about as 100 people. Okay. Let me know if you have any questions about that. And so that's all you have to do is just view the infographic, take in the information because you'll be asked questions about it later, and then answer that one question. Then you have to do the check your understanding. I'm not going to go over these questions with you, but you have 3 multiple choice. So when you just look at the agenda and I say read 2 selections, answer the questions, and do the check your understandings all in one day, that seems like a lot, but it's not as much as you would think. All right, so now we're going to get ready to read the poem. So you need to pay a little bit more attention to this one because I think there's some new information or information that you might need to review. So what literary devices are, we've talked about that, figurative language and literary devices. The theme of poetry in general uses figurative language and literary devices. It expresses a theme or message about life and is arranged in lines and stanzas. Here's something that we talked about the other day a little bit, but idioms are phrases or expression whose meaning is different from their literal meaning. I think I mentioned in class that day how hard it would be to learn a different language when you start looking at the idioms that people use in different areas of the world. And they don't, like, kicking the bucket doesn't have any relationship to the literal meaning of it. Kicking a bucket and dying don't really have any relationship. But we could research where that term came from. But in the modern world, it doesn't really relate. So unless you just grew up knowing that term, it's kind of like, why does that mean dying? So one of the idioms in the poem is glad to lend a hand. So it's not literally, here, you can borrow my hand, right? So it means happy to help another person do something. And the thing about idioms is sometimes they're so ingrained into the way we speak and into our language that we forget that it's an idiom and that it's not actually meant to be taken literally. Because if I say, I'll lend you a hand, I don't automatically think of that as an idiom, but it's just not meant to be taken literally. You have a question later on about parallelism. Repeats a grammatical construction to show a connection between ideas. So the poet uses parallelism. Every stanza is kind of, or is arranged in the same way, and you'll see that in a minute. Poems often contain shifts in ideas or shifts in something. Occur when the writer's tone or focus changes. Shifts help keep a reader interested in a text and can enhance the clarity. So this talks about the shift in the poem and the effect on the tone. So after you read the poem, come back to this and look at it again. Remember, the Get Ready pages are your first introduction to the things that are going to be asked about on the test. So you really need to make sure that you take in all of the information and understand all of the information on the Get Ready pages. It shows you what a stanza is, and I think you are pretty clear about that in a poem. So let's just look at the poem now. I'm going to read it to you. You can read this information about the author. She lived from 1923 to 2012. She lived through, World War II. This poem uses the same approach to analyzing people as the infographic does. Watch for similarities and differences between the details that Szymborska and Hagley choose as you read. So she starts out with, and the poem is a contribution to statistics, but she starts out with out of 100 people. And then she starts giving us statistics, but these are statistics that she came up with. They're not really scientific statistics like the other one. That might give you help on one of the answers later on. So out of 100 people, those who always know better, 52. Notice that she uses a dash. A dash is a long pause, okay? Not a terribly long pause, but it's a pause. Those who always know better, 52. doubting every step, nearly all the rest. Glad to lend a hand if it doesn't take too long. Notice that I didn't pause here. There's no punctuation, so I read it just as it is. Glad to lend a hand if it doesn't take too long, as high as 49. Remember, she's talking about out of 100 people, how many would be glad to lend a hand if it doesn't take too long, as high as 49 out of 100. Always good, because they can't be otherwise. 4, well, maybe 5. Able to admire without envy, 18. Suffering illusions induced by fleeting youth, 60, give or take a few. That stanza reminds me of the poem that we read, Mirror. Suffering illusions induced by fleeting youth, 60 out of 100, give or take a few. Not to be taken lightly, 40 and 4, which means 44. Living in constant fear of someone or something, 77. So in her estimation, 77% of people are living in constant fear of someone or something. Capable of happiness, 20-something tops. Harmless, singly, savage in crowds, half at least. On their own, harmless. With a group, savage, half. Cruel when forced by I shouldn't have put a pause there. Cruel when forced by circumstances. Better not to know even ballpark figures. Wise after the fact. Just a couple more than wise before it. Taking only things from life. Let me reread that because I read it incorrectly. Taking only things from life. In other words, only taking things, not giving. 30. I wish I were wrong. Hunched in pain, no flashlight in the dark. 83. Sooner or later. Righteous. 35, which is a lot. Righteous and understanding. 3. Worthy of compassion. 99. Mortal, 100 out of 100. Thus far, this figure still remains unchanged. All right, so again, just to reiterate, whenever she's giving you these numbers, she's saying out of 100 people, this is how many are this way or do this. There was a shift in one of these, a couple of these were different than the others. In her construction and the way that she did it. So you need to be thinking about that too. Notice that I didn't stop for the questions because I just wanted to read the poem all the way through. I strongly encourage you to read it again on your own. Okay. Each one of these is a stanza. Okay. And then you have the lines. Highlight the first 3 stanzas in the poem. What pattern do they establish? So here's our first 3 stanzas. You can choose any color you want. What pattern is established here? Well, she gives us the characteristic of the people or something that they do or a way that they feel. And then she gives you a number. And since it's 52 out of 100, it's a percentage. So put that in your own words. Restate lines through 1 through 5 in your own words. That's a great thing to do, paraphrasing. Remember to maintain the order and the meaning of the original text. So just say this, write this in your own words. Okay? Highlight the word ballpark in line 30. A number in the ballpark is approximate, not precise. How does this idiom affect the tone of this stanza? When she says, cruel when forced by circumstances, better not to know even ballpark figures. What is her tone there? What is she trying to say about that? How does she feel about that? By saying that you really don't even want to know a ballpark figure of the number of people who are cruel when forced by their circumstances. This one, highlight a word that is repeated in lines 41 through 45. A word that's repeated. Highlight it. It's pretty simple. How does the author use repetition and parallelism to show a contrast here? Righteous. You might want to look up what the word righteous means. You may know, or you may think you know, but look it up anyway. Righteous, 35, which is a lot. Righteous and understanding, 3. What's the contrast there? What's the difference between righteous and understanding? Think it out. Show me what you think. Highlight the contrast that appears at the end of this poem. Did I skip one? No, I don't think I did. Highlight that contrast that appears at the end of this poem. Why might you find the ending surprising or jarring? Okay. Why is the ending sort of surprising, and what's different about it? There's an obvious difference about this last stanza, the ending of the poem. And why might you find it surprising or kind of unexpected when you get to the end and she ends it like that? Just think it out. All right, so there's your questions. Make sure that you answer them all in 2 or 3 good sentences so that you'll get full credit. Make sure that you capitalize the first letter of your sentences. Some of you are not doing that. Some of you are still insisting on just writing because blah, blah, blah. That is not a complete answer. Don't expect to get credit for it. Don't bother to do it if you're not going to give a complete answer, because you're not going to get credit for it. So it doesn't really benefit you. It's kind of a waste of time if you're not going to complete the assignment in a way that's going to get you credit for having done it. You know what I mean? Okay. So then, and this is the last for today, you're going to do the check your understanding. You're also, tomorrow and the next day, you're going to be doing the analyzing the both of the text. You are going to do, no, you aren't going to do the research, sorry. You're going to do the analyze the text, the top part, and then you are going to do the whole page of the collaborate and compare. And so I'll go over those in another video, but that's what you need to do. And notice that once you get to that, it goes to independent reading, which is for next week. So complete all of the activities. If you want to work ahead, you're more than welcome to. Complete all of the activities for The World as 100 People and a contribution to statistics. I'm going to be putting in grades today for your poem, your test, and your analyze the text for mirror. So if there's any of those assignments, you can still do those late, but today is the very last day because this is the day that grades have to be in for progress reports. So this is your very last chance, and I won't be working on grades anymore after I leave school at 3:30 today. So if you're going to get any of those assignments turned in, make sure that you get them turned in today. Okay. Again, do not get behind during this time of remote learning, because when you come back to school, we only have 1 week left for the 6 weeks, and you've got other work to do when you come back, new work. So it's not like you're going to get to come back and then get all caught up. You know you don't have time once you come back to school to get caught up. Okay, so stay caught up during this time, and email me if you have any questions. Remember, there is this link at the top of each Google page, each Google Classroom page. And if you want a Google meeting with me, it would be just like me doing this video, but face-to-face and live with you. I will be happy to do that. Even if you just want to ask me about one question, you're like, I'm stuck on this question, I watched the video and I still don't get it. Just email me and say, can you meet with me? And I have a meeting this morning at 9, but for the rest of the day, once I get your email, I'm sure that I will be able to, respond pretty quickly with that. Okay. So let me know if you need any help, and I will talk to you soon.